Hey everybody, welcome to the Mana Leak. I'm John as always, and it's Saturday. That means it's day 2 of the Oath of the Gatewatch set review, which means we're doing blue, because of course we go in Wooburg order with a couple of videos at the end for the various miscellaneous cards. But before we jump into this review, I like to reiterate the 3 disclaimers, just in case you're new to the series or you didn't watch yesterday's, in which case you should go back and watch yesterday's as well. But number 1, this is a limited set review. This set review is focused primarily on draft and to a lesser extent sealed. All ratings, all opinions, everything is focused on limited. I may make mention of constructed here or there, but I'm not really focusing on that. I am a limited channel and a limited player through and through. Number 2, these are sort of my first glance opinions and evaluations of these cards. I have not played them. I have not proxied them out and tested them or anything like that. If it's not a reprint that I've played with anyways, I have never played with these cards. I'm rating them kind of in a vacuum. Now, of course, since this is a second set and we are still going to be playing with 1 pack of Battle for Zendikar, I can try to make an informed decision on what the format's going to be like, but I don't know what the format's going to be like. I don't know what the archetypes are going to be like. I don't know if one color is going to be totally miserable to play, as happened in Battle for Zendikar. I really hope not. But these are just sort of my first glance opinions. These are how I'm going to be approaching these cards next weekend in the pre-release and the week after at draft. And, they'll change over time. I will, maybe move grades up, move grades down, etc. as I get experience. Finally, number 3, these are just my opinions. I may play differently than you. I have various biases towards different archetypes and different play styles. I will try to get as generalized as possible, and I try to not let those biases influence me too much, but these are my opinions, and I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear if you agree with me. I want to hear if you disagree with me. I like set reviews not as a gospel truth, but as a way to encourage discussion amongst the player base, because when you start saying, this card is bad, I guarantee you this card is bad, I won't even listen to anybody talk about it, you're gonna not be the best Magic player. A card may be terrible, and you may be pretty darn certain about it, but you should at least listen to somebody for a little bit if they say, no, actually, it's not very good. If you can, correctly explain to them why, yes, in fact, it is bad, great. But if you're just making broad, hyperbolic statements like some pro players have a tendency to do, then you're going to kind of box yourself in and maybe miss some things. But these are my opinions. I want to hear your opinions, so make sure you do use that comment section down below. But without further ado, we're going to jump on into the first card. Up first, we have Abstruse Interference. I had to look up the word abstruse, and it means what I assumed it would mean, oddly enough. It is a 2 and a blue instant at common. It has Devoid, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 generic mana. You put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield. It has sacrificed this creature, add colorless to your mana pool. We all know that. This is pretty bad. Conditional counter spells that require a single mana to be paid die off really quickly. Force Spike is kind of okay because a single mana is enough for your opponent to assume you don't have a counter spell and they might tap out. Plus, it also means that you can play it on turn 1, you can play it on turn 2, on turn 3, when people are more likely to be tapping out. Unfortunately, this falls off so hard after about turn 3 or 4. Yeah, maybe here or there you might catch somebody tapping out for a big bomb, tapping all 6 of their lands or something. But generally, you just are not going to get to counter something. Now, you still get the Scion. Even if they do pay the 1, you still get a 1/1 Scion, a 1/1 Scion, but I don't want to pay 3 mana for a 1/1 Scion. That just sounds terrible to me. So I'm totally out on this card. I don't really like it. I think it's going to be a dead card just way too much of the time, or a virtually dead card. You get a 1/1, but I would rather have some other card. So I'm going to be totally out on this and just go with an F. Maybe it should be a little bit more sideboard range, but I don't really think so. So F from me. Next up, we have Blinding Drone. Blinding Drone is a 1 blue creature Eldrazi drone at common. It's a 1/3. It has Devoid, and it says pay a colorless mana and tap. Tap target creature. We have a tapper, and it's a cheap tapper. You don't have to pay 3 mana. You don't have to tap 2 creatures to tap something down. You pay a single colorless mana. Hopefully you have colorless mana available to you. This obviously gets significantly better in a heavily colorless deck, a deck that is playing Wastes, that's playing Kozilek's Channeler and Blighted Lands and has Scions and has ways of producing colorless mana. If this is the only colorless card you have and you don't have any waste or anything, then yeah, this falls off a huge amount. But this feels like a backbone of a really nice, control-y, tempo-y, blue-based colorless deck. A single mana for a tapper, an unconditional tapper is fantastic. It's just not something we've seen lately. And anybody who's not familiar with the power of tappers will very quickly discover how powerful they are. I would definitely be very happy to pick these up on my way to a colorless deck. I'm very glad to see a really cheap tapper. I'm going to be pretty high on this. I'm going to go with a B-, maybe even just flat out a B in a colorless deck. If you're not in a colorless deck, obviously this drops off a little bit, all the way down to a lot bit. But I'm totally happy to have this in colorless decks. And I think every deck could probably fit in some colorless mana here or there. So I'm pretty happy with this card. I'm going to go with a B-, maybe even higher. I love tappers. I just really love tappers, and I'm glad to see them back for a cheap activation cost. Next up, we have Cultivator Drone. This is a 2 and a blue creature Eldrazi drone at common. It's a 2/3, it's got Devoid, and it says tap, add one colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a colorless spell, activate an ability of a colorless permanent, or pay a cost that contains diamond colorless mana. This is interesting. It's fairly handy to have if you're in a fairly dedicated colorless deck, if you have a lot of colorless activated abilities especially, so you have a reason to be making this colorless mana. It falls off really hard if you don't have any real uses for colorless mana, because you can't use this as generic, unfortunately. I would only really consider taking this, however, after I've established myself in that heavy colorless deck. I don't want to take this and try to get into colorless. I want to take this when I know I'm in colorless. Luckily, I think that nobody's really going to take these if they're not heavily into colorless, so they'll be there if you want them. It's just kind of a decent enough utility creature if you're in those colors. So I'm going to go kind of like C+ if you're in colorless. If you're not, C-. It is a 2/3 for 3, which is okay if you really need a filler creature. But yeah, keep an eye out on these. If you are going into the colorless route, they're going to help you out. If not, you can pass them by for most other things. Next up, we have Deepfathom Skuller. This is a 5 and a blue creature Eldrazi at rare. It's a 4/4, it's got Devoid, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. In addition, you can pay 3 and a colorless, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. I like this quite a bit. It's no Edric, Spymaster of Trest, because it's not a 3-drop, it's a 6-drop. By the time you're putting down 6 drops, you're more to kind of the late game, so the card advantage isn't quite as nice as Edric's, although it is refilling your hand. But more importantly, you're not getting in with, random aggressive 1/1s and 2/2s like you are on turn 3 and turn 4 of the game. So it's not quite as good as Edric is, but it is a 4/4 on its own, and you get to build your own kind of unblockable Ophidian. You get to build an unblockable creature, whatever it is. Maybe it's a 1/1 that, is just kicking around and you want to get in to draw a card. Maybe it's a 6/6 to, just finish your opponent off and, hey, get a card draw as well. Why not? I feel like this is definitely first pickable, but ever so slightly below kind of bomb level because of the cost. 6 mana is a lot for this, but this card does a lot. That activated ability, that 3 and a colorless to make something unblockable, is relatively cheap, and you probably will be able to get that by the time this comes down, which means you could pretty much close the game, if not drown in card advantage. So I'm pretty happy with Deepfathom Skuller. I'm pretty happy to first pick it. I'm going to go with a B+. I could be edged up to A- though. I do really, really, really like this card. Deepfathom Skuller. B+, maybe A-. Next up, we have Dimensional Infiltrator. This is a 1 and a blue creature Eldrazi at rare. It's a 2/1. It's got Devoid, it's got Flash, it's got Flying. And for 1 and a colorless, target opponent exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a land card, you may return Dimensional Infiltrator to its owner's hand. So it's a 2/1 flyer for 2 that you can flash in. It seems like a really sort of solid utility creature. It's a little bit unfortunate that it's rare because it's not first pick territory. It's very, very, very solid, and if you're blue, you do want this. you'll take 2 even if you can get them, because 2/1 flyers for 2 are rather good, especially when you can flash it at the end of the turn. You could, in an emergency, flash it in to kill an X2 flyer or something like that. And it kind of can dodge removal. If your opponent is going to try to remove it, you get to roll the dice and see if they have a land on top. You get to exile things if you have processors, things like that. The second ability is just kind of, it's decent value here and there. It's not amazing. I mostly just really like this as a 2/1 flyer for 2 that happens to have flash. So unfortunately, I don't think you would ever want to first pick this, but it seems like a relatively high pick. I would take it pick 3, pick 4 after an especially powerful blue start. So I've got to go with B-. I think it's a really, really, really solid creature. Just not really bomb territory or anything. So Dimensional Infiltrator, B-. Next up, we have Gravity Negator. Gravity Negator is a 3 and a blue creature Eldrazi drone at common. It's a 2/3. It reminds me kind of like a probe droid from Star Wars. It's got Devoid, it's got flying, and it says whenever Gravity Negator attacks, you may pay colorless. If you do, another target creature gains flying until end of turn. So this is a 2/3 flyer for 4, which is already okay. We've had some 2/3 flyers for 3 in the past, Courier Griffin namely, but 2/3 flyer for 4 is still okay. But the come fly with me clause is pretty nice. The fact that you can attack with a couple of things, pay a single colorless mana, and have something else flying through the air with this thing is pretty handy. Because the thing flying through the air could be a 4/4, it could be a 5/5. Could be something really awesome. Could be something with a when it deals combat damage effect. Could be an ingester. Who knows? There's a whole host of things that you can potentially do with this. I can see it being pretty fun. It definitely does require some setup, though. Having this creature down plus another decently, okay flyer or creature that you want to have become a flyer, plus having a colorless mana available. There is some setup to it, but I can see it being pretty fun. And it is also a mildly okay creature on its own, so I'm pretty happy with this. I go with a C+. I think you'll include this probably a little bit more often than not. If you have no colorless sources whatsoever, you're just totally not that kind of deck, then maybe you could cut it for something else. But even then, it's a 2/3 flyer for 4. You still might put it in. Next up, we have Prophet of Distortion. Prophet of Distortion is a single blue mana for a creature Eldrazi drone at uncommon. It's a 1/2. It's got Devoid. And you can pay 3 and a colorless to draw a card. Just draw a card for 4 mana. I like Prophet of Distortion. It's a really solid mana sink for the later game. And it can come down really early, and most opponents would probably hate to waste a removal spell on a 1/2 for 1. But if it sits around, you're just going to start drawing cards left, right, and center. Don't have anything to do with this turn. Flooding out, draw a card. Draw a card. Just do it over and over and over. It's not amazing. It's not splashy. I don't think it's a super high pick, but I'll be very happy with one of these guys, especially in any sort of tempo-y controlling deck. So I got to go with a C+ on it. Next up, we have Slip Through Space. This is a single blue mana. It's a sorcery. It's at common. It has Devoid. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. And also, draw a card. This is pretty obviously a Surge activator, I assume, and the overall spell is decent enough. Hitting a big creature with this is powerful, and it does replace itself, which is awesome. I think you'll take this if you have a spell already that you've picked that you absolutely want to Surge. And preferably, you also have a solid creature to sneak through. You're not going to play this in a Flyers deck, I don't think, unless you have an amazing Surge spell, because your Flyers are already, sort of unblockable to most creatures. So I don't think you take this if you don't already have a reason to take it, and that reason is a really good Surge spell, a spell that you have to Surge, that you must Surge. Without that, this is just a rather mediocre kind of trick, a mediocre single turn, I got a bit of damage through. And of course, unless that damage is winning the game that turn, it's really doing next to nothing. But it is a low cost, it does replace itself, so it is always going to be sort of a little bit okay. I'm going to go with a C- on it. I'm not sold on Surge, I'm not sold on the mechanic. Absolutely, it will function really well in Two-Headed Giant, but I'm not really focusing on Two-Headed Giant because it's not, despite this set being designed for it, it's not really a supported format at competitive levels or even at your local store usually. So C- for me. Next up, we have Thought Harvester. Thought Harvester is a 3 and a blue creature Eldrazi drone at uncommon. It's a 2/4. It's got Devoid. It's got flying. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, target opponent exiles the top card of his or her library. This is just totally solid. It's a 2/4 for 4, which is normally costed. There are a lot of 2/4s for 4 in this set, and it's always been a decently fine set of stats. When it's on a flyer, for 4 mana still, it's even better. Getting some cards ingested per colorless spell is just kind of gravy on top. I think you should generally be pretty happy playing this in every single blue deck. Blue-white flyers is going to be pretty darn happy with it, and even sort of blue-black with some processors is going to be really happy about it. I think this is just a totally solid card that you probably want to take relatively highly if you're in blue. I don't think it's kind of a high pick pack 1, but I think it's a rather high pick pack 2 and pack 3 when you know you're blue. I'm going to go with a B- on it. I just really like it. I really like 2/4s for 4, especially when they fly. And hey, bonus ingest, why not? Next up, we have Void Shatter. Void Shatter is a 1 blue instant at uncommon. It has Devoid, and it says counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. This is just cancel. We have cancel in a number of sets, and cancel is not a card that you generally want to be playing in draft, and you maybe should be playing in sealed. Cancels and sort of bad counter spells are usually better in sealed than they are in draft, because in sealed, there's going to be those really splashy sorceries, and it's going to take a long time for your opponent to actually find them and get the mana to draw them, and then you're going to have a cancel that you can just, finish them or counter that spell with and start getting in. In draft, there's just so much higher quality spells that a single bad counterspell isn't going to save you. It's not going to do anything for you. So generally, you want to keep this in your sideboard if you're in draft. In limited, you might want to think of, or not in limited, sorry, in sealed, you might want to think about it and maybe give it a go. But it is just cancel, and we've talked about cancel to death before. So solid D from that, solid sideboard rating. Moving on to Ancient Crab. Ancient Crab is a 1 blue creature crab at common. It's a 1/5, and it has no rules text, nothing but flavor text. It is just a 1/5 for 3. I do not want this. It's a total sideboard card. If you find out that you are not the beatdown deck, which probably wouldn't be too surprising playing blue most of the time, but you need even more defense and tempo and ways of surviving than you already have in your main deck, then yeah, you can think about sideboarding in Ancient Crab. But I don't think you really want to main deck this basically ever. So I've got to go with a D- on this. Some sideboard cards, you see them, they're kind of the only real pick in the pack, so you take them. Naturalize, for example. That I would go with a solid D. Ancient Crab, you're probably going to end up with these because they were last pick. You don't even want to take these as kind of a sideboard card on purpose, really. So D- for me. Not a fan of Ancient Crab. Next up, we have Comparative Analysis. Comparative Analysis is a 3 and a blue instant at common. It has Surge, 2 and a blue, and target player draws 2 cards. So Surge, I don't think we talked about yet. This is the first Surge card. So Surge says you may cast this spell for its Surge cost if you or a teammate has cast another spell this turn. Now, very importantly, I'm not really going to be addressing Two-Headed Giant in any of my reviews. Two-Headed Giant is a format that's just not played all that often. This set is explicitly designed to play well in Two-Headed Giant, but it just doesn't get supported. I hear there is a Two-Headed Giant Grand Prix coming up, but it's not going to be on Magic Online. My local stores aren't really doing it. It's a fun format, and I love playing it casually, but I don't really attack it with any sort of high-level competitive insight. So I am going to be looking at Surge cards and this whole set as though it is for single-player drafting. So let's ignore the teammate. Basically, Surge says, if you already cast a spell, you can cast this spell for cheaper. So in this case, you get a 1 mana discount if you already cast something else. Otherwise, this is Inspiration. Target player draws 2 cards, instant speed, 4 mana. That's Inspiration. We've had it before as recently as, I want to say, Gate Crash. It was somewhere in RTR block. I think it was Gate Crash. If you can Surge it, then it's an instant speed Divination, which is really nice. I would love instant speed Divination. So ultimately, where does this fall? Well, I think it falls more towards Inspiration than it does towards Divination. I don't know about Surge. I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to play really bad, really cheap spells to try to trigger Surge, and they're going to lose because they're playing a lot of really bad, really cheap spells instead of just good average costed spells and playing surge cards that are good, even if you don't happen to get to surge with them. Now, late in the game, of course, this is pretty good. Let's say I draw a 2-drop creature, I play it, and then I can play Comparative Analysis for 1 less mana, and that's a nice little discount for a situation where I would have paid the full price anyways. So I don't know. I think this card's fine. I don't think you're going to go out of your way to get it. I'll give it a C+. I think you'll include it more often than you won't, but I don't think it's one of the sort of amazing surge cards that are out there. So C+ for Comparative Analysis. Next up, we have Containment Membrane. This is 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura at common. It has Surge for a single blue. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature doesn't on-tap during its controller's on-tap step. Warning, warning, warning. This is not claustrophobia. It does not tap the creature. Do not put this on a vigilance creature. You will be very sad. Do not put this on an on-tapped creature because it's just going to be a good blocker for your opponent. So unfortunately, I can't remember the card that was similar to this. It was in M15, I believe. And I think it had something to do with like barnacles or encrusting. Encrust might have been the spell. It doesn't tap the creature, but it keeps it tapped if it's already been tapped. Perhaps it's attacked you. Perhaps it's tapped for an ability. Perhaps you have 2 for 1 to yourself and had to tap it with some sort of tapping spell. But you get to tap something down and keep it tapped down, which does make this still decent removal. It still is going to basically blank a creature for you. Now, the surge cost is pretty nice, being able to just kind of tack this on. Let's say I have 4 mana, I play a 3-drop, and then play this for 1 extra mana with the other blue mana that I have sitting around. That's an awesome discount just to get something else down. So I think this is totally fine, and I would pay this. I would pay the full price for this card as well. And that, I think, is going to be the hallmark of a good surge card. Are you okay playing the surge card not for the surge cost? If yes, then I think it's a decent card. If not, then I think you really have to question it. This one, I would be totally happy paying 2 and a blue for it, and I would be ecstatic playing a blue for it. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to go with a B-. It's a little bit lower than I would have claustrophobia, for example. I think that would earn a B, if not a B+. But the fact that it doesn't tap it in the first place is a slight problem. So Containment Membrane, B-. Next up, we have Crush of Tentacles. Crush of Tentacles is a 4 blue-blue sorcery at Mythic. You can surge it for 3 blue-blue. It says return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If Crush of Tentacles surge cost was paid, put an 8/8 blue octopus creature token onto the battlefield. So this is the other aspect of surge. Some cards say if the surge cost was paid to do something extra. So not only do you get a discount, you get an extra effect. And this one's really tough. You obviously really want to play this for its surge cost because it hurts you just as much as your opponent. In fact, you're going to probably tap out on your turn to play this card, and then your opponent's going to be the first one to start playing down creatures. Unless your opponent's board was nothing but tokens, they're going to get the head start on you. They're going to get to play first. And that's not really where you want to be. I don't want to play this for not its surge cost. With the surge cost, it seems really cool. You get to bounce your opponent's team, bounce your team. Maybe you've got some end of the battlefield effects, but let's not get too results-oriented thinking here. But we get an 8/8 octopus. Our opponent is going to get to put down some number of creatures. They're going to get to do that. However, they're probably not going to get to put down 8 power worth of creatures, which means we're going to get to start smashing in with an octopus every single turn. Now, how often are we going to be able to activate Surge? I just don't know. And that's something that I really need to get some experience with to find out. In Two-Headed Giant, in any sort of team-based format, I think this card's awesome because you're going to be activating Surge frequently. If you go a turn where you and your opponent, or where you and your partner don't play any spells, that's a pretty bad turn. You're going to have a partner who's going to play something, and you're going to have 3 blue to cast this, sweep the boards, and get an octopus. So I don't know. I'm a little bit out on this for limited, to be honest. One-on-one limited anyways. I'll give it a C. I might give it a go, but I just don't think it's going to work out all that well. If it turns out that Surge is something that just totally always is going to happen, then this goes a whole lot higher. this could be probably a B if that's something that can reliably happen. If it can't, I'm pretty happy giving it a C down here. This is a card I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm going to keep an eye on this as kind of a barometer of how good is Surge. How often does Surge activate? Definitely let me know what you think about this one in the comments below, but I'm going to go with a C on Crush of Tentacles. Next up, we have Cyclone Sire. Cyclone Sire is a creature elemental at uncommon. It's a 3/4. It has flying, and when Cyclone Sire dies, you may put 3 +1/+1 counters on target land you control. If you do, that land becomes a 0/0 elemental with haste that's still a land. So this has Awakened 3 when it dies, kind of like the wall that had Awakened 3 when it comes into the battlefield. I really, really, really like this. I really like Cyclone Sire. A 3/4 flyer for 5 is okay. That's just okay right then and there. It blocks most of the things that are going to be in the air, and it attacks in if it has the ability to just kind of get through for 3. And your opponent is going to have a huge internal dilemma of, do they kill it? Do they kill it and give you a free 3/3 on the ground? Do they, quote-unquote, waste a removal spell for that? It's going to cause a whole lot of problems for your opponent. And I love doing that. I love making my opponent have really, really, really tough decisions about what they're supposed to do. I really like Cyclone Sire. I think it should be a relatively high pick, and I think you're just going to get a ton of value out of this, either through blocking or through just damage through the air, or through awakening a land because it died. So flat out B for me. I'm a big fan of Cyclone Sire. Next up, we have Gift of Tusks. Gift of Tusks is a single blue mana instant at uncommon. It says, until end of turn, target creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elephant with base power and toughness 3/3. This is not Turn to Frog, because 3/3 is a body. That is a thing. It does put big things into complete disregard or Touch of the Void range or whatnot. Or the black spell that we'll talk about that does -4/-4. So it is a way of shrinking some things to play another spell to kill something. But in combat, this is not nearly as good as Turn to Frog. Turn to Frog, if you cast it on an opponent's creature, you're almost always going to kill that creature. There's so many rare situations where you wouldn't. At worst, you would probably trade a 1/1 for a 1/1. Turning an opponent's attacking creature into a 3/3 is a little bit harder to deal with. You're going to need an X4. You're going to need a 4/4 to kill it and not trade. You're going to need a 3/3 to trade. And so this definitely isn't quite as good as Turn to Frog. Now, unlike Turn to Frog, you could cast this on your own creatures. You could turn that unblocked 1/1 into a 3/3 to get an extra 2 damage through, I suppose. It's not an exciting play, but it is a little bit of versatility. I think it is still ultimately a fine card. It'll probably be at best, or at its best use, turning something gigantic into something less gigantic. I'm going to go with a B- on it. I think it's a fine card to have a copy of in your deck, and I think it's a card that you should look to pick up, but I don't quite think it's Turn to Frog. Next up, we have Grip of the Roil. Grip of the Roil is a 2 and a blue instant. You can Surge it for 1 and a blue, and it says tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Draw a card. So I'm a big fan of freezing creatures, and I'm really curious when they're going to keyword that. They keyworded Menace. They've got to keyword this doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. At some point, it's going to be freeze or something, I imagine. So Grip of the Roil, it's not as remotely good as Containment Membrane. It doesn't keep it tapped down forever, but it does keep it down for a full turn cycle, which is a really nice bit of tempo play. Blue is really good for doing that. It can help you continue getting your damage through. It can buy you time until you get to your win conditions or your stabilization conditions. It's a totally fine card to include. And again, like the other Surge card I can't remember the name of, Containment Membrane. Like Containment Membrane, it's a card that I'm totally fine paying 3 mana for this, and I'm pretty darn happy playing 2 mana for it. So I'm fine with this if I Surge it, and I'm fine with it if I don't. It draws a card to replace itself anyways, so I'm totally fine with Grip of the Roil. Ultimately, it's not an amazing card. It's not removal. It's not anything that's going to win you a game, but it's fine enough to include. I'll play this more often than I won't. So a C+ for me from Grip of the Roil. Next up, we have Hedron Alignment. 2 and a blue for an enchantment at rare. It has hexproof. and it says something. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may reveal your hand. If you do, you win the game. But there's more. If you own a card named Hedron Alignment in exile, in your hand, in your graveyard, and on the battlefield. So you need to have 4 copies of Hedron Alignment, 1 exiled, 1 in the graveyard somehow, 1 in your hand, and 1 on the battlefield. That's not going to happen. Being realistic, in Limited, that's just not going to happen. This card says absolutely nothing until the last line, 1 and a blue, scry 1. Which is fine, which is actually kind of fine. It's an interesting little bit of mana sink. It's something you can play to sink your mana in later in the game. Now, that being said, it's still not good enough. You know, Thassa was good because she scried every single turn, plus could also become a giant indestructible god and also had another clause on her. Having to pay for the scry and not getting anything else out of this card just isn't good enough. This should be a last pick, to be honest. Flat out F. I would never play this. I would feel so bad if I was so short on playables that I had to play this card. So I've got to go with a straight up F on this. I can't wait to see the shenanigans that are done in Constructed, though. Next up, we have Jwar Isle Avenger. This is 4 and a blue for a creature Sphinx at common. It's a 3/3 flyer. That's massively, well, actually, it's not massively overcosted, but it's slightly overcosted. But you can surge it for 2 and a blue. Now, 2 and a blue for a 3/3 flyer is amazing. So this is one of those surge cards where I say if I'm not surging it, I'm not super happy about it. But if I am surging it, I'm pretty darn okay with it. So I don't know ultimately where I want to put this card. Now, a 5-mana 3/3 flyer, we had one. It was Ghostly Sentinel, but it had Vigilance. And a flying Vigilance creature is pretty decent. I'm willing to pay 5 mana for that. 3/3 with no abilities, I'm not as willing to pay it. If you're desperate, if you really need some sort of flyer or curve topper or whatever, then yeah, you could throw this in. But I'm not a fan of this not surged. So I don't know. This is going to be another barometer. This is going to be another card that if Surge actually is really good and happens a whole lot, then this card is pretty decent. And if it doesn't, then this card's not that great at all. I'm going to lean towards the not that great at all side. I'm going to go with a C- for Jwar Isle Avenger, but I will be interested to see what happens. But for now, for the first few weeks, C-. Next up, we have Negate. This card is in every set ever. 1 and a blue for an instant at common. Counter target non-creature spell. This is total sideboard card. In Sealed, you can main deck it because there are more sorceries and instants and artifacts and enchantments being played than there are in Draft. And so you can reliably main deck it in Sealed. In Draft, it should sit in the sideboard until you see a very good reason to put it into your main deck. I'm talking things like board wipes or just non-creature spells that you cannot deal with. Planeswalkers, stuff like that. Side it in if you see those, but if not, just leave it in the sideboard. Don't main deck it in Draft, and that means that it is just a flat-out D. Next up, we have the Blue Oath, Oath of Jace. Oath of Jace is a 2 and a blue legendary enchantment at rare. It says when Oath of Jace enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards. Then, at the beginning of your upkeep, scry X, where X is the number of planeswalkers you control. X will equal 0. 99% of the time, X is going to be 0. Ignore the second part, just like all the oaths. So we just look at the first part here. This is a sorcery speed, draw 3, discard 2 for 3 mana, which is okay. It's fine. It would be better if it was instant speed, of course, but, you know, we can't do that with enchantments. It's not first pickable, but I think it is fine enough to play in blue. Slightly higher if you think you'll go late and some card advantage will help you. But this should be a card that you pick up pretty darn late in the draft. It's not quite as last picky as Gideon's Oath, I don't think, but it is still going to be a late pick and a card that you probably shouldn't readily main deck. So I'm going to go with a C- on it. You probably want to cut it unless you're kind of hurting for card advantage or relevant spells. Next up, we have Overwhelming Denial. Overwhelming Denial is a 2 blue instant at rare. You can surge it for blue, and Overwhelming Denial can't be countered by spells or abilities. And what does it do? Well, it counters target spell. So this is a very expensive cancel, or it's a counterspell. It depends on whether or not you get to surge it. The fact that it can't be countered does not matter in Draft or Limited. Yeah, here or there, it'll screw your opponent over because they had a spell shrivel and they were going to get into a little counter war. But realistically, the vast majority of the time, it doesn't matter that it can't be countered. It is just a run-of-the-mill counter spell. And this is one of the ones that I don't want to pay 4 mana to play it. But I would love to pay 2 mana to play it. I would play counterspell. I would not play expensive cancel. So again, this is going to be a barometer for Surge, but I think it's not going to be that great, even if Surge does happen to be something that's pretty darn good. So I'm going to go with a D on this as well, maybe even a D-. I think it should sit in your sideboard until you see a huge reason for you to play a counterspell. Constructed, sure, I can see this doing some stuff, but Limited, we should probably pass this pretty hard. Next up, we have Roiling Waters. Roiling Waters is 5 blue for a sorcery at uncommon, and it says return up to 2 target creatures your opponents control to their owner's hands. Target player draws 2 cards. This does things that I love. I love bouncing creatures. I love drawing cards. I don't love paying 7 mana at sorcery speed. That is ridiculous. Now, I don't know if this could be any cheaper, but I just don't want to play this card. I don't want to wait for 7 mana. I don't want to pay 7 mana to do this. Now, if you do pay 7 mana and do this, you should probably be a little bit ahead, but tempo isn't something you really need, turn 8, turn 9, turn 10 of a game. What you need there is reach. You need ways to finish the game. Keep in mind as well, this card is utterly dead in your hand for probably about 70 to 90% of the timeline of the game. Like turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, at a minimum, this card's dead because you're not going to have 7 mana. Once you get past 7 mana, the card maybe comes online, but its utility just isn't probably all that good. I just see no reason to ever really want to play this card. It's so bloody expensive. It's just not what I want to do. I've got to go with an F on it. I don't think it's going to be good. I'd love to be proved differently, but I don't think it's going to happen. Straight up F. Next up, we have Sphinx of the Final Word. 5 blue for a creature Sphinx at Mythic. It's a 5/5. Sphinx of the Final Word can't be countered. Flying, hexproof, and instant and sorcery spells you control can't be countered by spells or abilities. Now, of course, as we just talked about with Overwhelming Denial, the first phrase doesn't matter. The last phrase doesn't matter. All that matters is that this is a 5/5 flying hexproof for 7. That is all that matters. Now, 7 is a lot of mana. I just ranted and raved about how 7 mana is a lot of mana. However, when you get a 5/5 flying hexproof out of it, it's not too bad. This is a solid finisher for any sort of blue deck that's going to go ever so slightly late. If you are playing any sort of tempo deck, control deck, any deck that's going to get to 7, this is going to finish the game for you. Your opponent is going to have to block this in the air somehow. That's the only way they're going to get rid of it. So I'm pretty happy with Sphinx of the Final Word. I would probably first pick it and start looking at going into something very control-y. I've got to go with a B+ on it. I really, really, really like it. Just for the most vanilla of reasons, it being a 5/5 flying hexproof. The other abilities, big whoop, they're not going to matter in Limited. Next up, we have Sweep Away. Sweep Away is a 2 and a blue instant at common. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Awesome, but there's more. If that creature's attacking, you may put it on top of its owner's library instead. That is amazing. Amazing. I was really hesitant about Clutch of Currents when I first reviewed it because it was sorcery speed. I like my bounce to be instant speed, and we didn't get any. But now we have some. For 2 and a blue, I can bounce a creature whenever I want to. And what's more, one of the most common places to at instant speed bounce a creature is when it attacks. So the fact that I actually get to throw it on top of the opponent's library instead of back to their hand is amazing. That's going to mean that that creature is off the board for a full turn cycle. It denies your opponent a draw the next turn. They're just going to draw a card that they've already put some mana into and already played at least once. I am so happy with Sweep Away. I think this is a solid B, maybe even a B+. I think I'm going to take these pretty darn aggressively and play at least a pair of them if I can. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think so. I love instant speed bounce, and this is a fantastic example of it. Next up, we have Umara Entangler. Umara Entangler is a 1 and a blue creature, merfolk, rogue, ally. It's a 2/1, it's a common, and it has prowess. Prowess, of course, means whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. I have talked an awful lot about prowess, especially when it was the mechanic of the cons block. And basically, I'm not a fan of prowess as a limited mechanic. I don't think it's that powerful. I think it's a good mechanic, but I think it's way less powerful than a lot of people think about it. A lot of people think, oh, every turn I'm going to be giving this +1/+1, but that's just not true. Your average deck wants 6, maybe 7 non-creature spells. And if you're being fairly aggressive, which is where you would want prowess creatures, you actually want even less non-creature spells, means that prowess just never really goes off as much as you hope. So the vast majority of the time, this is just gonna be a 2/1 for 2, which is overcosted. We want 2/2s for 2. We don't want 2/1s for 2. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of Umara Entangler. I don't think it's very good, and I'm not really going to look to take these. I think it's totally fine if you don't have another creature, but there should be a whole lot of other cards that you could replace this with. So I'm at a C- on Umara Entangler. The final card we have for blue is Unity of Purpose. Unity of Purpose is a 3 and a blue instant at uncommon. It says support 2, and then on tap each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. I like this a lot more than the white card, Shoulder to Shoulder, I think it was, because A, this is instant speed, so at instant speed I get to support 2, and those 2 creatures that were supported, plus any other ones that happen to have had counters on them, get to on tap. So not only do I get surprise blockers, I get surprise beefed up blockers that are going to continue to be beefed up the next turn. I do like this card a fair bit as a combat trick. Now, that doesn't mean I'm super high on this card. That doesn't mean that I'm going to take this card very highly at all. It gets a C+ from me. I think you're going to include it most of the time. It's only the most controlling, lowest creature decks that wouldn't want this. But I think in any sort of average, mid-rangey, or even a aggressive deck, especially aggressive deck, you're probably going to play this more often than not. But don't waste a high pick on it. So C+ for me, Unity of Purpose. So that's going to wrap it up for blue. Blue looks very interesting to me. It looks a little bit less powerful than it was in Battle for Zendikar, but there are some really good things. The bounce spell, Sweep Away, I am so excited to play that. A number of the Eldrazi's seem really cool. I'm really excited to see what blue has to do, especially for, of course, blue-black control. We'll see what it has to do for the other blue decks that we have come to know and love in Battle for Zendikar. But let me know what you think about blue in in Oath of the Gatewatch. What was your most wanted card? What card can you not wait to play with? What cards was I wrong on? What cards do you think are better than I gave credit for? Let me know in the comments down below. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at The Mana Leak. That's LEEK, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Twitter at The Mana Leak. Sorry, Facebook.com/The Mana Leak. That's the full URL. You can also find me on YouTube, as you have already, I hope, unless you're viewing this embedded somewhere, I guess. But you found me on YouTube. You've got the comment section down below. Make use of that. Please keep it civil. As well, if you like my videos, you should like and subscribe. There's the thumbs up button to let me know that you like them. I really like seeing thumbs. I don't know what it does on the algorithm side of things, but I like seeing people thumbing things up. And you should subscribe, because that way you'll know the second the rest of the set reviews go up. You'll know the second that Crack-a-Pack Tuesdays go up, and Wacky Wednesdays, and Spiky Saturdays, and Top 10 Thursdays, and box openings, and all the other various videos that pop up here or there. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow for the Black Set Review.